it's also nice to like get your work out there in like a larger scale. I love being able to like paint with my friends and have like volunteers. Like it's just a very cool community moment. So I really enjoy the murals.
That was Talisa Almonte, founder of Almonte Studio. And this is Epicenter NYC. We connect our communities to news, information, and each other. I'm your host, Amber Castillo. Starting a small business is never simple, and doing it during a pandemic without a financial cushion or a clear roadmap only raises the stakes. Many turn to side projects, online platforms, or local markets to stay afloat. Some found temporary solutions, and others, like today's guest, Talisa Almonte, built something more lasting. Talisa found herself at a crossroads in 2020 after getting laid off from her job and later coping with the deaths of her aunt and her father. She made the decision to walk away from full-time work. What followed was a series of steps that led to the launch of Almonte Studio, a Queens-based art business offering murals, digital illustrations, and colorful products inspired by city life and her Caribbean roots. The name comes from her father's old design shop in the Dominican Republic. Today, I sit down with Talisa to learn more about what it took to build Almonte Studio and what's in store for the future. Before we jump in, a quick message from our team.
Hi, I'm Mariana from the Epicenter NYC team with a quick health update. Flu, RSV, COVID, and stomach viruses are creating an epidemic, making public spaces, including schools, virus hotspots. Watch for norovirus symptoms like vomiting, RSV's sneezing and congestion, and the flu's high fevers and fatigue. Hydration, rest, and staying home when sick help keep families healthy. Protect your community. Wash your hands, clean surfaces, and keep up with vaccines. Need more info? Email hello@epicenter-nyc.com or text 917-818-2690.
Now back to the show. Here's my conversation with Talisa.
My name is Talisa Almonte. I identify as she, her, and my business is Almonte Studio.
Tell me about Almonte Studio.
So I'm a muralist and an illustrator. So I do anything from digital illustration, paintings, murals, and then I also wholesale and sell products online. Art prints, stickers, that sort of thing. I've always been drawing since I was a kid, and I actually went to school at FIT for fashion design. So I was like fully gonna be a fashion designer. Like that was my thing. You know, I watched Project Runway and I was like, New York City, you're very cliche. But during the pandemic, I got laid off from my job. And so I had been wanting to like freelance for a while, but I didn't really know how to do that. And also like, I wasn't really sure about having like going from a stable income to just, I don't know where the money's coming from. So I was kind of like drawing and posting my art on Instagram, reaching out to people to like, you know, collaborate on projects with. And things were like slowly picking up, but I ended up working like a remote job later that year, like towards the end of the year. And then unfortunately, I lost my aunt a couple months into starting that job. And then I lost my dad the following year in February. So it was just like a lot of things going on personally and I was just like, I don't know if I can like work like this. So I ended up quitting that remote job. And maybe a couple of weeks after my dad passed, I got an email from this organization called Poster Posse. They were telling me that I was being selected to do this Star Wars project. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. So that to me kind of like, it gave me like a little boost of like, okay, maybe it's worth continuing on this path. And then a month later, I established my business officially as Almonte Studio, which is what my dad's business in Dominican Republic was called.
Got it. And then can you speak a little bit about previous work experiences and how some of them informed how you went about starting the business or running the business at Almonte?
I feel like because of my background in fashion, color is really important to me in my work. So like making sure that there's like a harmony and like a balance with color, which is really interesting to me because I find that as I learn more and meet other creatives, there's a lot of people that I know that are like so terrified by using color. Whereas like for me, it's really hard to pare down. Like 6 colors is probably the smallest I've done. So I don't know. I feel like that definitely has to do with my background because we always had to create like color palettes and color stories. And they were always like really large because you had to have enough pieces to go into accessories and clothing and all other kind of, fashion items.
Yeah. You mentioned your father's business in the Dominican Republic. Could you speak a little bit about that and what your interactions were with that business growing up?
So my dad, he was a graphic designer and a cartoonist. So when you think of like those caricatures of like little bodies and huge heads, like that sort of style, he also did a lot of like surrealism and like really, really funky self portraits and things like that. He primarily used like color pencil and pencil because also like this was in an age where it wasn't graphic design wasn't done on the computer. He was like hand drawing letters, like it was crazy. And honestly, it's so weird to me that I can remember things like that because I was like 2, 3 years old when my dad was like at the peak of his business. But I always just admired, him sort of doing his own thing and being his own boss and like the respect that people had for him and his work. It's very admirable. I'm so grateful for both my parents, really, because my mom was always she actually studied like architecture. So she's not doing that currently, but I feel like because my parents were both creative parents, even though, yes, of course, I'm sure my mom would have loved for me to be like a doctor or something that's like more certain, right? But like I'm very passionate and very determined. So when I set my mind on something, it's like that's it. Like it's like laser focus, nothing is gonna stop me kind of stuff. So I feel like because I always demonstrated that, even if she was a little hesitant, she still supported me and felt like you know exactly what you want to do. So I'm just gonna support you in that path.
When did your parents immigrate from the Dominican Republic?
I moved to Miami when I was 4 years old. So my parents got divorced early. So when we immigrated, it was me, my mom, and my sister. And my dad stayed in Dominican Republic for a little while, and then he ended up coming later.
Miami also has robust art scene. When did you move from Miami to New York?
After high school, when I graduated, I moved to go to college in FIT.
Got it. Because I was wondering like how much of that art scene informed your work.
I will say it definitely sort of planted the seed, of like the possibilities because I went to a design school in Miami called Design and Architecture Senior High. So you have to apply to get in. So in that school, I really got to learn a lot of different techniques and mediums and like also scale. Like they were having us do these pieces that were like 4 to 5 feet big. And it was so intimidating, even just applying. A lot of the kids were students that went to like an art school in middle school. So they already had all this experience. And I had taken like an art club that met once a month. So it was just like really crazy. But I honestly, I owe everything to that school because just in the way that they pushed me to like work harder and also just the amount of skills that I learned. Even when I got to FIT, that first semester of FIT was so easy because I had already taken like a fashion course when I was in high school. So a lot of the things that they were teaching, I already had learned. So it was just like amazing. I mean, like that never happens.
Yeah, could you had mentioned that you're a very determined person, like no matter the stumbling blocks. So if you could speak about what some of those stumbling blocks were or just some of the challenges when you were first starting Almonte Studio.
It's funny because I actually feel like I've come across more blocks now than I did in the beginning. I feel like the one beautiful thing that happened during the pandemic was that everyone was so supportive of like just people doing their thing, small businesses that were starting, like there was like this like energy where everybody was just like so supportive. And I'm not saying that people aren't supportive of small businesses now. I just think that because of the economy being the way it is, especially this last year, it was just really tough. Like the markets that I participated in weren't doing as well as they did in the past. A lot of the markets that I did do that were like one-offs completely just disappeared. Like they were like, we're no longer doing this. So it's just like a lot of changes that I feel like made things a little bit more challenging to have some stability financially. But at the same time, it's like every time that I think to myself like, "Oh my gosh, maybe I need to like try to get a full-time job." Something always happens, like whether it's I get a project that I had applied to and forgot that I applied to. I don't know, like little things like this that I feel like, okay, well maybe this is the universe telling me to like not quit. And I'm not saying that like that I'd be like, okay, that's it, I'm done, no more. Cause I feel like I'll always be an artist no matter what. It's just that sometimes it's tough. Like it's very mentally challenging. You have to be like your biggest advocate and you also have to be the one to like put your work out there. So it can be a lot sometimes.
Yeah. What were some of the markets earlier on that you were hitting up?
So I did a lot of the open street markets in Astoria, which is where I'm based. Originally, they used to do them very frequently, and then a different organization took it over, and then it was still happening. I think like once a month, maybe. And then there was a lot of like smaller ones that I honestly don't even remember the names because in the like not last year but the year before, I did like 57 markets. Yeah.
All throughout the year or
hmm
mostly in the summer?
Throughout the year. Yeah, from April until December. Because I do Queensland Market in Flushing, so that one alone is like 10 days. And that one's always been really great. It's been like the most stable income I've made, which is why every year I continue to apply. And it's also affordable to do as a vendor.
Yeah. So then would you say one of your biggest challenges has been just maintaining that sustainability?
Yeah, I think so. I think, for a while I've been wanting to pivot away from doing a lot of pop ups anyway, just because it's really exhausting, having to carry all these things and then taking an Uber and, the cost adds up. And also just like, since I'm getting into doing more murals, I want to dedicate more time to being able to create more work and be able to participate in like mural festivals and things that would require me to travel. So I really want to like focus on building my online presence more and my online shop just so that people aren't always just relying on me in person. Everything that I have on my website, I have more on my website than I do in person anyway. And I understand like shipping costs and all that, but I have to also take care of myself and do what's going to be better for me?
Could you speak about maybe one of those projects or some of those partnerships?
Yeah, so actually last year I got a grant through the Queen's New Art Fund. I pitched doing a mural for the World's Borough Bookshop. And when he opened up his shop, even before it was open, he was like, "Oh, like I want you to do a mural." So I pitched the mural as the grant project because I knew that then it would help lower the cost of the overall project for him. And then it was great because originally we were going to paint the wall, but then the landlord was like, "Oh, can you guys do the ground because like we don't want to like take away from the building's aesthetics or whatever." But then it worked out even better because the asphalt mural came out really nice and it really just created like that space where he was already doing book readings and events now has like a more designated cute little area that's, colorful for everyone.
For anyone who hasn't visited yet, could you describe the mural?
So it's inspired by a quilt. It's like a lot of squares, and then in each square, there's like different shapes. I have these little like leafy patterns that I paint often. So I painted that coming together to make it like a cozy little nook. Since it's a reading area, the first thing that popped into my mind was like, oh, like when someone's like cozy with a blanket and like reading a book. So that sort of vibe. And he calls it the La Esquina. So I titled the mural La Esquina Cobija,
And what does that translate to?
the corner blanket.
When you first started the business, I know you said that wasn't the toughest part, but how did you go about starting it as a business? Was that your first business?
So since I had been drawing and like sharing my work and working on like smaller projects, I started to meet other small businesses in the neighborhood doing markets. You learn from other people, right? So I was asking a lot of questions for people who have been in business longer than me. And I was like, hey, like, basically just getting informed because I really didn't know what I was doing. Yes, my dad had a business, but it's not like I got a chance to ever like ask him like, hey, how did you do all this? And also, it was a different country, so it's a totally different experience. But so one of the first advice that I got from a lot of people was like, you really want to separate yourself from your business. So if you can establish yourself as an LLC and try to keep everything separate, it's really easy actually to do the LLC. You could do everything online yourself. You don't have to hire like a lawyer or whatever. So I did it online. You pay the fee, you fill out all the forms, and then boom, it was like within a week, I got the like, your business is established in New York City. And I was like, woo.
I'm a business.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
Got it. So from March 2021, where you established this as an LLC, you were doing more of those like markets and in-person events with your work, and then started incorporating some of these other grants and projects.
Exactly. And then I started doing murals in 2022. I only did one that year. And then from one, I went to like 5.
What brings you the most joy in your business?
Honestly, I think it's the murals. I've always been curious about murals. And when I got the chance to do one, I was like, man, this is really cool. It's cool in the way that people can interact with your work, in the way that it's also like temporary. So it gives you, at least for me, it kind of feels like sometimes when you look back at your work, at least for me, like I'll be like, oh God, why did I do that? Like because you're evolving and you're growing, right? So it's nice when you could just be like, oh, I could paint this over and it'll come out even better now because I have more experience. But it's also nice to like get your work out there in like a larger scale. I love being able to like paint with my friends and have like volunteers. Like it's just a very cool community moment. So I really enjoy the murals.
Yeah, I'm curious when your father was alive and also your mom, like how that changed some of that relationship or strengthened your relationship.
The thing that really gave me the courage to basically start Almonte Studio was because the last conversation I had with my dad, he told me that he was really proud of me and that he was happy that one of his kids was going, like following his footsteps. And he always was like so in awe of like the work I would do. And this was like before I even had a business, before I did any murals or anything. But he was always just so impressed, like, wow, like you're so much better than me, like you're so much more talented. And I always thought that that was so sweet because I always looked up to my dad as like wow, he's so incredible and his work is so amazing. And it's cool because he used very different materials than I did. So I feel like we both admired each other's work for like the differences.
Yeah. What is your future vision for Almonte Studio?
I don't know. I want to continue doing murals. I would love to like travel and paint murals in other cities. I want to be able to create more paintings, more murals, get back to like the creating part of it and less business. Obviously, I still have to like run a business, right? But like I want it to be more, I guess, more about me as an artist versus like me running a shop, which is what I thought I wanted in the beginning. So now I'm kind of like pivoting more into just being hired for my style and the way I draw or paint, like that would be the dream.
Awesome. Was there anything else I didn't ask that you wanted to share about yourself or your journey, your business?
No, I would just say like if anyone that listens to this wants to start a business, I say just do it. If you have the luxury of having a full-time job before you start a business, absolutely keep your job. The only reason I went full-time was because I already had gotten laid off. And when I had the remote job, it was taking an emotional toll on me that I just couldn't handle. So if I could have kept my original job, like at Gap, I would have probably stayed there for a while and just done my business in tandem with that until I felt ready to like make that jump. I just think it's like the more financially responsible thing to do.
Yeah, no, that's some great practical advice. Where can folks find you at Almonte Studio?
So my Instagram is Almonte Studio, and then my website is also almontestudio.com.
If you want to see Talisa Almonte's work up close, check out her latest mural at the South Street Seaport, created for the You're Not Alone Murals Festival, which brings artists and communities together around mental health. She's also working on a new project in the Bronx through NYC Parks and the Audubon Society, weather permitting. You can follow her on Instagram and TikTok at Almonte Studio and browse her art prints, stickers, and more at almontestudio.com. Links are in her show notes. And if today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend. We'd also love to hear from you. Leave us a review or reach out to us at hello@epicenter-nyc.com. That's all for today. Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting us as we do our best to support our community. We couldn't do it without you. Our intro music is All the Pretty Horses by Karavika. You can find more of their music on their website, linked to in our podcast description.